My brother's graduation was set for June 15th, but I didn't want to go. My mom, with a look that could freeze your heart, said that if I didn't show up, she'd cut my monthly allowance of 1,000 reais. The weight of betrayal suffocated me. I had always felt like the second choice in her life. On stage, while my brother shone, I wondered, what did I really mean to her? My name is Vinicius. I loved my brother, but the pain of feeling invisible was unbearable. As the applause echoed around me, my mind wandered through a maze of confusion. My brother's radiant smile seemed to glow even brighter under the auditorium lights, yet I couldn't feel genuine happiness. Claudia, sitting in the front row, wore a pride I had never experienced. The event became a spectacle of achievements and smiles, but for me, it was just another layer of loneliness. Anna, beside me, noticed my silence and squeezed my hand, a silent gesture of solidarity that made me feel a little less alone. I knew she was struggling with her own insecurities, which made the situation even more complicated. The ceremony dragged on, with every speech and round of applause tightening the pressure in my chest. What Claudia didn't understand was that I wasn't just rebelling against having to attend. I felt shackled by her demands. The idea that my worth boiled down to an allowance made everything harder to swallow. When the moment finally came for my brother to stand up and receive his diploma, a wave of emotions flooded through me. He looked at the audience, his eyes met Claudia's, and I knew she was his biggest supporter. It was an important moment, but I felt like a spectator in a movie where I didn't belong, a shadow within my own family. After the ceremony, the celebration began, filled with smiles and lively conversations. Roberto, always the peacemaker, tried to keep the harmony, complimenting everyone present and emphasizing how our brother's success was a victory for all of us. I noticed how he worked hard to make everything seem perfect, but what lay beneath the surface? What was happening behind the walls of our home? My thoughts became a whirlwind, and I needed to find a space to breathe. I felt drawn outside, where the cool night breeze contrasted with the heat of the auditorium. The night air smelled of freshly cut grass and flowers, reminding me of simpler, happier moments from childhood. Anna followed me, sensing that I needed a moment alone. "You don't seem happy for him," she said, breaking the silence. I looked at her, trying to find the right words, but all I managed was a deep sigh. "It's not that I'm not happy for him, Anna. It's just, I feel so lost, like nothing I do is ever enough." Anna furrowed her brow, seeming to understand the depth of my despair. "Mom can be demanding, Vinicius, but you need to remember that your worth isn't tied to her opinion. You don't have to please her at any cost." Her words, though full of truth, were hard to absorb. The love Claudia had for me was shaped by expectations, and I didn't know if I could change that. As we talked, I realized there was still a chasm between us, a space where unspoken truths lived. "You feel this way too, don't you?" I asked, my voice trembling. Anna hesitated, her gaze drifting away. "Yeah, sometimes. Mom has a way of making us feel like we need to be perfect." The mutual acknowledgement brought a mix of relief and sadness, as if we were finally brushing the surface of a problem that had always existed but was never openly discussed. We returned to the party, and I felt like I was wearing a mask. I smiled and waved at people, while inside I struggled against a tide of emotions that threatened to consume me. The music played a cheerful rhythm, but each beat echoed as a reminder of what I was losing, the freedom to be who I am. I looked at my brother again, surrounded by friends and admirers, and a flicker of pride washed over me. He truly deserved that moment, and I wanted to support him, but how could I do that without sacrificing my own identity? The party continued, and the tension between me and Claudia became palpable. I could see her from afar, animatedly chatting with other parents, and discontent grew in my chest. As I tried to focus on what was in front of me, images of our home, its rules, and expectations invaded my mind. My heart felt heavy with the realization that with each passing day, I was drifting further from who I truly was, suffocated by the weight of expectations. Roberto approached, noticing that I was more distant than usual. "How are you doing, son?" he asked, his voice gentle as always. I hesitated, the answer caught between the need to be honest and the desire not to worry the family further. "I'm fine, Dad, just thinking." He nodded, as if he understood more than I could explain, but I still didn't have the courage to open up. "Enjoy the party. Remember that we're all here for you, too." Those words felt like a hug, but also a reminder of what I felt was missing. As the night progressed, I realized I was at a turning point. I needed to confront Claudia, not just to defend my space, but to finally understand how the family dynamics shaped our lives. Could things change? Could we find a middle ground where love was unconditional, without strings attached? This idea lingered in my mind as the party drew to a close, and I knew the upcoming conversation would be pivotal for all of us. With the atmosphere starting to thin out, I decided it was now or never. I found Claudia surrounded by a few mothers, and her smile lit up her face. But what I saw as her happiness felt distant to me. "Mom, can we talk?" The tension in my tone made her turn to me, surprise flickering in her eyes. The other mothers stepped back, leaving us alone. "Of course, dear. What's going on?" Her normally firm voice had a hint of concern. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the words I was about to unleash. "I just wanted to say that, while I'm happy for Vinicius, I feel pressured. It seems like I'm never good enough for you." The silence that followed was heavy with emotion. Claudia looked at me, and what I saw in her gaze was a mix of confusion and pain. "Vinicius, I didn't want you to feel that way. I just want what's best for you. Sometimes I just don't know how to express that without sounding demanding." Her vulnerability caught me off guard. It was the first time I had seen a crack in her authoritative armor. "I understand, Mom, but I need freedom. I don't want to live according to your expectations. I want to be myself." The sincerity in my words seemed to hang in the air, and I realized that this was an important step. Claudia hesitated, and for a moment, time stood still. "Maybe I've forgotten that you have your own dreams too," she admitted, her voice trembling. Her acknowledgement gave me hope. The conversation I had feared could become a turning point. "Can we try to find a way together?" I asked, my heart racing. And for the first time, I saw a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. "Yes, let's work on this. I love you, Vinicius. I want you to be happy." And so, in that moment under the party lights, a new light began to shine between us. The relief that washed over me after my conversation with my mom was quickly overshadowed by anxiety. My brother's graduation was approaching, and I knew that despite Claudia's promise, there was still a huge expectation looming in the air. My heart was torn between the desire to break free from family pressures and the wish to be part of this moment in Andre's life, who had always been a role model for me. In the days that followed, I tried to find a balance, but every interaction with my mom felt like a reminder of her authority. Anna noticed my state of mind, and during one of our conversations, she encouraged me not to let worry overpower me. "Vinicius, if you feel suffocated, you need to speak up. We can't just accept everything Mom imposes," she said, with a serious look that only she could muster. I knew she was right. There was a weight on my shoulders that seemed to grow each day. She had always been my confidant, and I felt it was time to fully open my heart. "It's hard, Anna. I just wish I could be myself without everything being a competition. It feels like everything I do has to live up to Mom's expectations, and it's exhausting," I confessed, gazing out the window at the leaves dancing in the wind. Anna took my hand, a simple gesture that brought me immense comfort. "We need to find a way to make this day special, not just for Andre, but for us too. We can't let Mom's demands ruin our happiness," she insisted. That night, I decided that I would at least try to make the best of the situation. If I had to attend the graduation, I would do so with an open heart, not just as an obligation. I began planning how I could connect with what truly mattered, the love and support we always felt for one another as siblings. I went to talk to Andre, who was so caught up in preparations that he seemed unaware of the pressure I was feeling. "Hey bro, ready for the big day?" I asked, trying to sound excited. He smiled, but I soon noticed that despite his enthusiasm, a shadow of concern lingered on his face. "Yeah, but I'm worried about what Mom will think. I can already feel her pressure before I even step on stage," he replied. I heard his words and realized he too felt the weight of expectations, albeit on a different level. "Let's do something different then. Let's celebrate this as a victory for all of us, not just for you," I suggested, an idea starting to form in my mind. "Yes, that would be amazing. We can have a small party after the graduation, just us and a few people who truly care," he replied, his face lighting up at the thought. With that, I would not only have a reason to be present, but also a way to support my brother and shift the focus away from our mom's expectations. The night before the graduation, the atmosphere was tense. Claudia was in full organizing mode, checking every detail and seeming even more demanding than usual. I could feel the pressure weighing on all of us. When I looked at Anna, I noticed she was just as worried as I was. The stress Claudia exuded was affecting the whole family. The night before the event was marked by uncomfortable silence, and I knew I needed to do something to ease the tension. I decided it was time for an intervention. I gathered all the courage I could muster, and while Mom was busy organizing the last details of the graduation, I asked to talk to her. "Mom, can I speak with you for a moment? We need to talk about what's happening. This pressure is affecting us more than you realize." I didn't expect an immediate reaction. In fact, I was prepared for a confrontation. Claudia paused for a moment, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "What do you mean by pressure? It's just a graduation, Vinicius. This is important for our family. You should understand that," she replied, her voice firm, but I sensed a spark of uncertainty within her. "I understand, but I can't live just to meet your expectations. I'm worried that Andre's graduation will turn into a nightmare instead of a celebration. We need to support each other, not compete against one another," I argued, feeling my heart race as the words flowed out. To my surprise, Claudia took a deep breath. "Maybe you're right. I didn't realize how my pressure affected you. I'll try to be more flexible, Vinicius." The conversation hadn't been planned, but it was a step in the right direction. I felt that, even if there were still challenges ahead, that discussion could signal a change. The next day, with nerves in the air, we finally arrived at the graduation venue. The decorations were beautiful, but what caught my attention the most was Ana and Andre by my side, ready to face the day together. As Claudia's speech began, I realized that regardless of what happened, family was what truly mattered. The love we shared was stronger than any external pressure. I was prepared to live that moment, not just as a younger brother, but as someone who was finally beginning to understand the true meaning of loyalty and support. Thus, as the applause echoed, my determination grew. We could face any challenge together, and I knew that deep down, love would always prevail. If you're enjoying my journey, don't hesitate to subscribe and follow more chapters of this story. The atmosphere at the graduation was charged, and the tension among family members was palpable. My heart raced as I observed the faces lit up with excitement, but in my mind, a storm was brewing. Claudia, with her demanding demeanor, was always in the spotlight, and the way she managed the situation made me uneasy. Looking at my brother, I realized he was just as anxious as I was. What worried me the most, however, was the lack of emotional support he was facing. It felt as if the pressure to be perfect was becoming unbearable. I remembered the conversations I had with Anna, where she often expressed concern for our brother's mental health. Her words echoed in my mind, and I felt I couldn't let him go through this alone. During the ceremony, as people stood up to applaud the graduates, I saw the sparkle in my brother's eyes. He was about to receive his diploma, but at the same time, I noticed the weight resting on his shoulders. Claudia's gaze was fixed on him, and I knew that any slip would be met with criticism. I felt an overwhelming urge to stand up and shout that he didn't need her approval, but the pressure of the situation left me paralyzed. Anna, beside me, held my hand and gave me a look that said she was also aware of what was at stake. What troubled me the most was that I wanted Claudia to see how incredible my brother was, not just for his academic achievements, but also for his kind and supportive character. When the moment came for my brother to take the stage, a mix of pride and sadness filled me. He was doing something monumental, and his accomplishment should have been a moment of celebration, but the shadow of our mother's pressure seemed to overshadow everything. As he received his diploma, the crowd erupted in applause, and I wondered if he truly felt the joy of that moment, or if he was merely relieved to have met yet another expectation. His smile wasn't just of happiness, it had a hint of relief, as if he were finally shedding a burden. But I knew that was only temporary. After the ceremony, as the party unfolded, I decided to seek out my brother and join him. The noise of the celebration felt distant, and the joy around us couldn't drown out the unease I felt. When we found each other, he was surrounded by friends, but his eyes met mine, and for a moment, everything around us faded away. "How are you feeling?" I asked, trying to capture the truth behind the smile. He hesitated, a shift in his expression revealing his inner turmoil. "I'm happy, but I don't know if I did everything right," he replied, insecurity evident in his voice. Those words cut me, as I knew he was thinking about Claudia and the expectations she placed on him. "You did your best, that's what really matters," I said, trying to comfort him. Anna joined us, and soon the conversation shifted to lighter topics. But the tension persisted, like a shadow refusing to disappear. Meanwhile, Claudia circulated among the guests, always wearing a forced smile, trying to maintain appearances. I knew that in her heart, she was worried about how others perceived her as a mother. That frustrated me, because it wasn't the image that mattered, but what we were truly experiencing as a family. How could we be happy if we were always worried about others' expectations? Listening to laughter and animated conversations, I felt like I was fighting against a sea of illusions, and the weight of reality became increasingly difficult to bear. As the party progressed, I decided it was time to confront Claudia. What I wanted most was for her to understand the pressure my brother felt and how it was affecting his life. I took a deep breath and approached her, who was animatedly chatting with some friends. "Mom, can we talk for a minute?" I asked, trying to stay calm. Her gaze shifted to me, and I noticed she looked somewhat surprised, but also annoyed. "Not now, Vinicius, I'm busy," she replied, but I didn't let that discourage me. "It's important, please." With an impatient wave, she finally agreed to follow me to a quieter spot. When we finally found a space to talk, I tried to explain how my brother felt. "He's under a lot of pressure, Mom. It's not just the graduation. It's everything you expect from him," I said, my voice shaking slightly. Claudia crossed her arms, a look of disdain forming on her face. "Pressure is necessary, Vinicius. If he doesn't learn to handle it now, how will it be in the future?" she replied, but I couldn't accept that logic. He needs your support, not just your expectations. He needs to know that he can make mistakes and still be loved. The conversation intensified, and I realized I was challenging not just her perspective, but also her deeply held beliefs. My heart raced, but I wasn't willing to back down. To my relief, the conversation began to create space for a deeper understanding between us. Claudia, though reluctant, started to realize that what I was saying made sense. I wanted her to understand that loving my brother meant accepting him as he is, not as she wished him to be. As the dialogue flowed, I felt we were at a crucial moment. What could have been just another family argument was turning into an opportunity for reconnection. I knew there was still a long way to go, but that small step was already a sign that change was possible. The atmosphere in the party hall was charged with palpable nervousness. As the lights glimmered on the faces of the guests, I found myself surrounded by people smiling and celebrating, but inside me a storm brewed. My mother, Claudia, felt like a constant weight in the air. I knew that at any moment she could cast a disapproving glance or, worse, make a cutting remark. Looking at the stage, where my brother was preparing to receive his diploma, the pride I should have felt was overshadowed by frustration. The pressure Claudia placed on all of us was oppressive, and I couldn't stop thinking about Anna, how she always tried to be the perfect daughter, even when it drained her. With each speech and round of applause, I felt a conflict growing inside me. Far from being just a celebration, this was a reflection of all the expectations our mother had for us. I didn't want to be part of this game, but at the same time, the thought of losing my allowance put me in a state of anxiety, as if my worth was tied to a number she dictated. I looked at Anna, who was sitting in the front row, her eyes shining with emotion as she watched our brother receive his recognition. I wanted to comfort her, but shyness held me back. Her expression, a mix of happiness and sadness, revealed that she too felt the weight of the expectations surrounding her. When the event finally came to an end, a wave of relief washed over me. However, just as I began to stand up to leave, Claudia turned to me with a look that said it all. "Vinicius, we need to talk," she declared in an authoritative tone, as if she already knew what I was thinking. I mentally braced myself for the confrontation, the tension in my stomach intensifying. And as Roberto tried to smooth things over with a nervous smile, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to fall apart. We moved away from the crowd and the conversation began. Claudia, with her insistence, wasted no time laying all her cards on the table. "Do you really think you can ignore the family responsibilities? This isn't just about your brother, Vinicius. It's about what our family represents." What she didn't understand was that this definition of family was crumbling around me. The walls we had built around our emotions were as fragile as the bonds that united us. Instead of feeling pressured, I started to feel revolted. The idea that my loyalty and love should be sacrificed at the altar of expectations was unbearable. "But what about Anna?" I interjected, almost instinctively. Claudia seemed to hesitate for a moment, and that gave me a glimmer of hope. "She's trying so hard to be perfect, but it's consuming her. We can't keep going like this." The silence that followed was deafening. My eyes searched hers, trying to convey the message that happiness should come before any imposed standard. But Claudia was unwavering, and the frustration on her face showed that she wasn't ready to let go of control. Roberto, my father, finally decided to intervene. "Claudia, maybe we should look at this differently. Family is about love and support, not obligations." The way he said it, with calmness and sincerity, shifted the atmosphere a bit. Claudia looked at him, and, for a moment, I thought there might be a crack for healthier dialogue. However, her expression quickly transformed into disdain. "We're talking about discipline and responsibility, Roberto. We can't just ignore that." I felt the world splitting between Claudia's oppressive views and Roberto's sincere desire for understanding. It was as if I were caught between two chains, and all I wanted was freedom. "I can't live under this pressure, Mom," I said, my voice trembling. The look she gave me was one of disappointment, and that hurt more than any reprimand she could give. Instead of a reply, she simply turned away, but the determination in Roberto's eyes gave me a push. From that moment on, I realized I was at a crossroads. How I dealt with this situation could change the dynamics of our family. I didn't want to enter a battle, but I also wasn't willing to submit to what Claudia considered love. So I decided that instead of fighting, I needed to assert myself. "Mom, I love you all, but I can't keep living in a world where acceptance is conditional on my behavior. I want to support Anna, but that doesn't mean I have to lose myself in the process." Claudia fell silent, absorbing my words, while Roberto seemed surprised but proud. Anna approached, drawn by the tension hanging in the air. She took my hand, and that was all I needed to feel a little stronger. Time passed, and what once seemed like an impenetrable wall now felt like a field of possibilities. I think I was finally ready to face the truths that separated us. Love had to be more than obligations. It should be a free and conscious choice. And as I looked into my sister's eyes, I realized that the real battle was just beginning. The atmosphere at the graduation was thick with expectations, nervous laughter, and camera flashes. I felt like an intruder in a world that wasn't mine, surrounded by faces ready to celebrate while I struggled to find my place. Claudia's presence beside me was suffocating. She was radiant, but the pressure emanating from her made me want to disappear. I knew that her smile wasn't just joy, but a silent demand for everything to be perfect. As I watched my brother on the front stage receiving his diploma, a mix of pride and resentment swelled within me. It was unfair, I thought, that he didn't have to deal with the same pressures that Anna and I faced. The adrenaline of seeing him there, achieving what seemed unattainable, was overshadowed by the shadow of expectations weighing on my shoulders. Anna was by my side, her gaze full of understanding, and for a moment, we forgot our mother's demands. We were just siblings, supporting each other in a moment that was both celebratory and desperate. "Are you going to be okay?" Anna asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. Her concern was palpable, but I wasn't sure if I could answer honestly. How could I explain to her that the pressure I felt wasn't just because of the graduation, but also from the internal struggle to find my own path? At any moment, I expected Claudia to raise her voice, demanding that I do or say something, and that made me even more anxious. As the congratulations spread, I saw a group of my brother's friends approaching, all laughing and having fun. The contrast between their joy and the weight I carried was so intense that it almost made me look away. They seemed so free, so carefree, while I was trapped in a reality I hadn't chosen. The conversation among the friends flowed like a river, while I stood there, like a stone in the middle of the path, unable to move. "Vinicius, are you okay?" Roberto's voice came as a breath of relief in the storm I felt. My father had always been the peacemaker, trying to smooth over conflicts and create a harmonious environment. But in that moment, his presence reminded me that I wasn't alone. I needed someone who understood the weight of the expectations our mother imposed on us. A closer look revealed that he too carried a silent sadness, as if he knew the family was at a breaking point. "I'm trying, Dad," I replied, my voice faltering a bit. He nodded, as if he understood that words weren't enough to express how I really felt. Then, without thinking, I pulled Anna close to me, seeking the comfort she always offered. "I just wish things were different." Roberto gave me a small sad smile, and his hand found my shoulder, a simple gesture but loaded with meaning. "Sometimes we need to face the truths hidden behind people's smiles," he said. "It's not easy, but it's necessary." His words resonated within me, like a call to action that I wasn't sure I was ready to answer. My brother's speech began, and silence fell over the room as he spoke about his experiences, challenges, and the support he received along the way. I got lost in his eyes and realized he too was aware of the pressure our mother exerted on all of us. When he mentioned Anna and me in his speech, thanking us for always being by his side, it was as if a light had flickered on in the darkness surrounding me. There he was, the favorite son, acknowledging that he wasn't alone on his journey. Anna gave me a gentle touch on the arm, and for a moment we exchanged knowing smiles. It was a brief moment of connection where the words we didn't say became unnecessary. But the joy didn't last long. As soon as the ceremony ended, reality set in again. Claudia was seeking attention, hugging my brother and capturing the moment with the camera, completely ignoring what was happening around us. The pressure wrapped around me like a thick fog. What really mattered? Our mother's approval or the unconditional support we exchanged as siblings? I realized that no matter the situation, the bonds we shared were more important than the need to please someone who didn't understand the complexity of our feelings. Vinicius, can we talk? Anna pulled me aside to a quieter corner, away from the voices and the bustle. Her expression was serious, and I knew she wanted to discuss something deeper. As we moved away, the heavy atmosphere that had followed me began to dissipate a bit. "It's time we talked about this, isn't it?" she started, the hesitation in her voice betraying the gravity of what was about to be said. I nodded, encouraging her to continue. "We need to free ourselves from the expectations Mom imposes on us. We shouldn't let that define who we are." Those words were like a balm for my soul, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't alone in the fight. It was time to confront Claudia, to expose the wounds that had accumulated over the years. We needed a space where we could be ourselves, without demands or criticism, and I was willing to fight for that, not just for myself, but for Anna and Roberto too. "Shall we do this together?" I asked, feeling that for the first time, we were in sync. Her smile lit up the space, and in that instant, I knew change was on the horizon. The next words we exchanged would be the first step towards redefining what it meant to be a family. And this new journey would take us to a place where we could all be free. If you have a family story to share or a moment that changed your perspective, don't hesitate to share it. The atmosphere was tense. And even with the soft light streaming through the window, I felt a weight in the air, as if each breath was a burden. My mind was racing with thoughts about what was about to happen at my brother's graduation. I decided I needed to talk to Anna before the big event, as she always had a way of helping me clarify my ideas. I found her sitting on the couch, a book in her lap, but her gaze was distant. When I approached her, she smiled, but I noticed the worry hidden behind her smile. "Anna, are you okay?" I asked, trying to break the ice. "I'm just thinking about all this, the graduation, what Mom said about you," she replied, looking down at the floor. The silence between us became heavy, and I knew that what was to come wouldn't be easy. It was time to reveal my feelings. "I don't think I can go," I confessed, my voice trembling. "I feel like I'm being forced to do something I don't want, and it hurts." Anna's gaze intensified, as if she had been waiting for that moment. "I understand." "Vinicius," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. "But you know Mom won't back down. It's hard for her, and that's what makes her act this way." "But what about me? What I want?" I questioned, desperate to be heard. Anna let out a long sigh and leaned her head on my shoulder, as if trying to find the right words. "Sometimes we have to sacrifice for the good of the family, even if it hurts," she replied, sounding more like a mother than a sister. I had a feeling there was something deeper, a hidden truth between us that we weren't willing to face. The weight of responsibility and expectation was overwhelming. "Maybe Mom doesn't understand how this affects me. I just want her to recognize my pain too," I said, my voice thick with emotion. Anna looked at me with a serious expression. "You need to talk to her. It won't be easy, but if you don't open your heart, you'll never know what could happen." Her words resonated within me, and the wave of courage began to grow. That night, I decided I would confront Claudia. Dinner was tense. My father, Roberto, tried to keep the mood light, making jokes about everyday life, while my mother barely glanced at me. My stomach twisted with each bite, and insecurity consumed me. Once dinner ended and the table was cleared, I asked everyone to sit in the living room. "Mom, I need to talk to you," I began, feeling my heart race. Claudia raised an eyebrow, her expression immediately tightening. "About what, Vinicius?" she asked, crossing her arms as if preparing for a battle. "About my brother's graduation," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't want to go. It's not that I don't support him, but I really don't feel well." "That's nonsense. You have to go. It's an important occasion for the family, she replied without hesitation. But with the strength Anna inspired in me, I continued, and how I feel is important too, Mom. I'm tired of feeling pressure to be someone I'm not. I don't want you to love or accept me only when I do what you expect. The room fell silent, and for a moment, the only sound I could hear was my heart beating. Claudia looked surprised, and that gave me a tiny spark of hope. Vinicius, you can't just decide not to participate in things. Life requires sacrifices, she insisted, but I noticed her voice tremble slightly. I understand that, but what about me? I've never asked about what I really want. I'm fed up with living under your expectations. I just want to be myself and be accepted for that. That declaration seemed to shake the walls of my family world. Roberto, who had remained silent until then, finally intervened. Claudia, maybe you should listen to what Vinicius is saying. He's growing up and needs to know that his voice matters too, he said gently. I looked at my father, grateful for his intervention, but also anxious about what my mother would say. Claudia took a deep breath, and her expression began to change slowly. Maybe I've been too hard on you, she admitted, a hint of weakness in her posture. It's hard for me to see you grow and want to be different from what I planned. I just want what's best for you. I know, Mom, but you have to understand that I have dreams and desires too. I can't live your life, I replied, feeling emotion begin to overflow. The conversation that followed was like a river finally breaking free from a dam. Claudia began to share her own insecurities, revealing that behind her rigidity lay a deep fear of losing control and, with it, her connection with her children. She spoke about her youth, how she dreamed of being an artist but ended up becoming a teacher due to societal pressure. I listened, absorbing every word. It was as if a new light was being cast on the image I had of her. Mom, I don't want you to feel that way. I want us to share our fears and dreams instead of confronting each other, I said, feeling that for the first time we were truly understanding each other. Anna, who had been watching us in silence, appeared emotional. When Claudia looked back at me, there was a newfound softness in her gaze. Maybe I need to be more open to hearing what you have to say, Vinicius, and maybe you can also understand that I don't want you to get hurt, she said, the vulnerability in her voice palpable. Can we work on this together? I asked, feeling a thread of hope intertwined between us. The room, which had once been a stage for tension, was now transforming into a space for dialogue and acceptance. Yes, we can, she replied, and for the first time, I felt that truth could be the foundation of our relationship, not expectation. The conversation flowed late into the night, with laughter, tears, and newfound understanding emerging. The love that had once manifested as demands now had the chance to transform into acceptance. My brother's graduation was approaching, but regardless of what happened, I knew that, with my family, we were on a new path. And that, in some way, was more important than any event.